young master, Noah Walker, who is currently 9-1 with his Grixis Delver deck, playing against Kassis on Blue-Red Delver, who is also 9-1.
Yeah, again, this is going to be exciting because I'm really interested to see if the unconventional cards that Ely is playing are going to be better than the black cards that Noah is playing. I feel like as a, if you're a deck builder out there and you really like to deconstruct the value of cards, this is going to be a perfect situation to see that sort of thing in action.
So Noah's going to start out with a Flooded Strand, finding a Volcanic Island, going down to 19, and he's going to cast Delver of Secrets. So that's going to resolve and has the potential to run away with the game if Ellie doesn't have a way to remove it.
Yeah, despite the intricate nuances of each person's deck construction, things can still come down to simply, I played a turn 1 threat, I got ahead because you couldn't answer it, and I, essentially was able to snowball that into a victory.
So Ellie is going to use his Flooded Strand, fall down to 19 to even the life totals up, and find a basic island.
And we see one of his miscut fetch lands, which he's known for, as well as, I have to imagine that's some super fancy expensive island. I don't know which one it is, but
it looks like it's just an arena foil. So
just an arena foil, no big deal.
It's much more affordable than something like a Guru land.
Yeah.
I believe we do have them available on StarCityGames.com, so feel free to check that out. Noah's going to flip his Delver of Secrets, play a Polluted Delta, get in for 3 points of damage, and then just pass the turn back to Ellie.
So Noah currently is ahead on the board. We'll probably see those kind of card comparisons that I was talking about earlier if the game gets to a late game scenario where they're both on even footing. But currently, with that Delver, Noah is pretty firmly ahead, especially because he was on the play. And Ely really needs to have some sort of answer or start doing his own thing to race back.
So it looks like Ely's just going to start off with a Ponder. Let's see what he decides to do with them.
Not really the response I was hoping for against this turn 1 Delver.
Yeah, so Ely's going to shuffle that Ponder and hope to draw some kind of answer card. Maybe a Pyroblast, maybe a Lightning Bolt. Just something that he can use to take care of it.
Yeah, so one thing that's also worth saying is when you're playing a combo deck, spending your first couple turns playing cantrips usually is fine because then you're going to have a big play like Show and Tell into Grizzlebrand that is going to catch you back up. But in these sort of matchups in the blue-red Delver mirrors, they usually don't have any cards that are particularly good at catching you up if you fall behind. So if you do fall behind, you're usually going to have to claw your way back into the game over the course of multiple turns.
So Ely's just going to shuffle on that Ponder, pick up a random, pass the turn back to Noah Walker. So it looks, after playing a Scalding Tarn, Noah's going to try and cast a Brainstorm on Ely's end step. Ely's going to fall to 15, cracking that Scalding Tarn to go get what looks like to be a Volcanic Island. So maybe we'll see something like Spell Pierce or one of those Pyroblasts here.
Yeah, I have to imagine that Ely is going to want to fire off the Pyroblasts basically whenever he can, and this Brainstorm would be a pretty good target, but I have to imagine the Delver is a bit more important if he does do it. But it looks like actually Ely was just doing that to avoid a Stifle, because if Noah wanted to stifle Ely's fetch land, Noah would have to have cracked his fetch land before the Brainstorm resolved, meaning that Noah would be likely to get less value out of that Brainstorm. So a pretty smart play on Ely. He didn't have to sacrifice anything by doing things that way, so long as he doesn't have anything he wants to do with that mana. And by sequencing things that way, he's able to just hedge his bets a little bit more in case Noah did have a Stifle.
And this is just harkening back to his play on turn 1, following the same line. Noah was tapped out for that Delver of Secrets. He used his Flooded Strand right away to go get a basic island, and then just didn't do anything with the mana. So he's just playing around Stifle, not willing to let Noah get any value out of those cards if he happens to have them in his deck.
Yeah, I kind of like the play so long as Ely didn't have anything else to do with the mana. But normally these Grixis Delver decks don't play Stifle because they're playing all these black cards. So,
now to be fair, Ely hasn't seen anything that signifies that Noah's Grixis until now with the Underground Sea. But Flooded Strand, Volcanic Island, Delver, Brainstorm, those are all cards that something like Temur Delver is going to play.
That's absolutely true, but Noah has been pretty known for playing this deck and I feel like Ely probably could have guessed, but maybe not. I don't know.
Here's the Cabal Therapy from Noah. Ely's going to reveal a hand with 2 Wastelands, a Forked Bolt, a Young Pyromancer, True Name Nemesis, Daze, and Force of Will. Noah did name Brainstorm on that Cabal Therapy, so he is going to miss, but he's going to get the valuable information.
Yeah, this is a pretty stacked hand. Even though Ely hasn't done a whole lot so far, he has the potential to not only answer Noah's threats, but also knock out all of his mana, and then play a threat that basically Noah can't really deal with. Young Pyromancer and True Name Nemesis are both very hard to deal with. True Name Nemesis obviously is the hardest to deal with, but even Young Pyromancer can be hard to deal with in these matchups.
So Noah's going to miss on that Cabal Therapy, gain a little information. He might want to flash it back, getting rid of his Delver of Secrets if he decides to, but I think that I would just rather have Delver.
I would rather have Delver too, but I wouldn't mind having the option to name Wasteland with that Cabal Therapy, but
right.
Unfortunately that is not a thing that you can do.
Noah's going to fall to 17, sacrificing a Flooded Strand. He'll go get another copy of Underground Sea.
So Ely is playing this with a lot of patience. He had the Forked Bolt, he has the red mana available, but he chose to play around Stifle and take an extra 3 damage from the Delver of Secrets instead. So this is always something that's interesting when watching players, because I know for myself, I tend to play these Delver decks a lot more aggressively, but I also just play the most aggressive version of Delver. Whereas Ely, he's playing this Delver deck a lot more patiently, and you can see that mindset has carried on into his deck building, where he's got cards like Snapcaster Mage and Dak Faden, where he's going to play the opening turns more patiently, a little bit more safe, ensure that he gets his mana online, because he's looking to play a longer game and he's got powerful cards that can actually have an impact in that scenario.
So Noah's going to try and cast a Deathrite Shaman, and Ely's going to use a Force of Will, removing that True Name Nemesis. So one of those tough to deal with threats is going to be taken care of. Noah's going to fire back with the Spell Pierce. Now this is going to tap him out and open him up to a potential Daze from Ely, but Noah also has Daze in his deck, so if he happens to have a Daze here for the follow-up, which he doesn't.
And this is another advantage to the way that Ely played this, because he was able to, if Noah did have a Daze, Ely would have been able to play around it. So Ely kind of getting paid off in multiple ways for his patient play.
So he was able to use a Forked Bolt to take care of that Delver of Secrets, a Wasteland to get rid of Noah's red mana source. And here comes a Cabal Therapy from Noah. Looks like he's going to name Young Pyromancer. We're going to see the rest of Ely's hand. I can't quite tell because they're all shiny, but it looks like we've got another Wasteland,
Probe and 2 Wastelands.
Probe.
I believe
there was an Island, a Wasteland, and a Gataxian Probe.
Oh, of course, the Island from the Daze.
And Noah's able to follow up with a Delver of Secrets after that. Ely picked up a copy of Force of Will here, but it seems like it's a turn too late.
It is a turn too late. So the one other thing worth mentioning about the way that Ely played this, where he was so safe with his fetch land, was that was his only source of red mana. Without cracking that fetch land, his draw was only Island, Wasteland, Wasteland. So I can certainly understand why he was maybe extra safe with that fetch land. And now with that Wasteland, he's been able to knock Noah off red mana, at least for a turn, which could have been a pretty big deal if Noah didn't draw a fetch land there.
So we had a little bit of nothing. Noah's not flipping his Delver of Secrets, just finds a polluted Delta, plays it and passes back to Ely. But Ely was able to come up real big with a copy of Brainstorm. So he has some cards in his hand that are kind of worthless at this point, and that Brainstorm's going to let him draw into 3 fresh new cards.
Yeah, Brainstorm is big game. Brainstorm is one of the hallmarks of the entire Legacy format. It just smooths out your draw, can generate card advantage, ensures that you're able to shuffle away cards that are bad in the matchup if you use it with a fetch land, and all around just one of my favorite reasons for playing Legacy is just so I can cast Brainstorm.
Now Noah is going to flip his Delver of Secrets, revealing a Lightning Bolt on top of his deck. Ely is going to respond by using his polluted Delta, falling down to 9, and it looks like we're going to get a Lightning Bolt on this Delver of Secrets.
Ooh, and that is a nice Lightning Bolt. House rules in Sugarloaf, if when you cast a Lightning Bolt like that, it does 4 damage.
Does 4 damage?
Yeah, house rules.
that doesn't get rebound?
No. That would just be unfair. Come on now, don't be silly.
Fair. All right, so Noah's just going to draw that lightning bolt. Not have any play, as we know he has lightning bolt and daze in his hand. And Ely is just hitting these cantrips and finding some gas. So there's a ponder.
So Ely looks like he's kind of in the driver's seat at this stage in the game, but his life total is fairly low, and he doesn't have any good ways to gain life. So he does want to get this game over with. There is potential for Noah to just draw some lightning bolts and burn Ely out.
He does have the one bolt in hand.
Yep.
It's also important to note that Ely's one copy of True Name Nemesis was discarded or was exiled to that Force of Will. So he doesn't have that resilient threat that can try and close the game out quickly. He needs to lean on the back of Delver's Secrets and Young Pyromancer to win this game.
Yeah, one card that I know Ely has played in the past in these style of decks, which I don't see now, are Umezawa's Jite. I've seen him play between 1 and 2 copies, I believe, to go with his True Name Nemesis. It can be a really devastating combo. We saw it last match how powerful that card can be. But it looks like for this weekend he's opting not to play it. But that would be a card that would have been great with that True Name Nemesis.
Looks like Noah is able to chain some cantrips together here. He had a Gitaxian Probe looking at Ely's hand. He was able to see that Pyroblast that Ely uses to take care of the Ponder that Noah just tried to cast. And Ely's hand is stacked at this point. We've got a Lightning Bolt, we've got a Wasteland that's just going to wait to knock off red mana if Noah decides to try and go get it. Here's another copy of Ponder. And let's see if Noah can find some action here. Something like Gurmag Angler would be very, very good. Unfortunately, Ely does have a Force of Will in his hand.
Yeah, I have to imagine that one of the big reasons that Ely fired off that Pyroblast on the Ponder the turn before was specifically because he knows that Ponder could convert itself into something like a Gurmag Angler that would be extremely difficult for Ely to deal with. So firing off that Pyroblast is one of the more narrow interactive spells that Ely has access to. So generally speaking, when you get in these top deck wars, you want to make use of your more narrow interactive spells first, and then hold on to the wider range interactive spells like Force of Will for as long as possible. Hopefully Noah is able to draw some sort of gas. Right now, both players not doing a whole lot, and I have to imagine that this is going to favor Ely, even though Ely's life total is so low. When we were at the start of the match and we were talking about the decks, I had mentioned a couple times how Noah had access to Painful Juice, but that is only out of the sideboard. So pre-board, I believe Ely is going to be favored in these longer games.
So Noah kept his Ponder and then shuffled on Ely's end step to find a Volcanic Island. Ely did go ahead and use his Wasteland to cut him off of red mana there.
And so I believe this is the second Wasteland that Ely has used on Noah's Volcanic Islands. And usually these decks only play 3 Volcanic Islands. So if Ely is able to get another Wasteland on one of Noah's Volcanic Islands, he's going to completely knock Noah off of red mana. So here's the 3rd Volcanic Island. If I have this right, and I believe I do, if Ely draws one more Wasteland, he can just lock Noah out of red mana, which is pretty phenomenal. There's still Deathrite Shaman to help make it work, but it would still be a pretty big game.
Well, there is a Young Pyromancer from Noah. Ely is going to use that Force of Will, even though he has a Lightning Bolt in his hand. He doesn't want Noah to be able to generate any advantage here.
Yeah, using a counter spell on a card like Young Pyromancer is definitely the ideal way to deal with it. As soon as it hits the board, it has the potential to generate some value, and Ely can just save that Lightning Bolt for something like Delver of Secrets or Deathrite Shaman, which wouldn't get value unless Noah actually untapped and attacked with them.
And here comes a Brainstorm from Noah. And if he can find a copy of his Gurmag Angler, he has the potential to take over this game. Ely, like I said, used the Force of Will on that Young Pyromancer. He's not really going to have a clean answer for that Gurmag Angler if we're able to get it on the battlefield for Noah.
Yeah, if the Gurmag Angler actually hits the board, I think the best thing that Ely can do is use that Set Adrift that we were talking about before. And it would be a 2-turn clock, so Ely would have to have it real fast.
Well, technically a 1-turn clock. Noah still has that Lightning Bolt in his hand.
Oh, you're absolutely right, yeah.
And even if you Set Adrift, Noah has enough cards in his graveyard, he could just delve it into play again.
Yep.
Delve it onto the battlefield.
Mm-hmm.
Well, there's a copy of Brainstorm for Ely. Again, he had one earlier in the game.
And hopefully Ely has a fetch land to go with this. Brainstorm is such a powerful card, but sometimes if you're not able to complement it with the shuffle effect, it ends up doing not a whole lot, because you end up, drawing some cards, putting some back on top of your library. But if you just end up drawing the cards that you put on top of your library again over the course of the next couple turns, it's not particularly impactful.
Well, he was able to find a copy of Delver's Secrets. It looked like there was a set adrift somewhere in his hand as well. So
nice.
Noah's going to cash in that lightning bolt to kill Ely's Delver's Secrets and then take the turn back.
And this is fine for Ely.
Just going to draw and pass.
Ely getting rid of that lightning bolt out of Noah's hand means that Ely's life total is maybe a little safer than it would otherwise be. And not only that, but given the fact that Ely has Snapcaster Mages in his deck, he's going to be able to win in other ways.
So here's a copy of Vendean Click that Noah's going to flash onto the battlefield on Ely's end step after he just draws and passes yet again. And it looks like we might see a Snapcaster Mage from Ely.
And Snapcaster Mage is a pretty big game. We've seen this card a lot in Modern as just a good way to have all the answers you need for your opponent's threats, while also being able to put a little bit of incidental pressure on your opponent. And it is certainly doing a similar thing here.
Now Ely's going to Snapcaster Mage and use a Pyroblast out of his graveyard, which is a little interesting because we knew that Noah had a Daze from an earlier Gitaxian Probe. However, he did cast a Brainstorm and Shuffle since then, so there's a chance that he could have gotten rid of it, but he did keep it. He was able to counter that Pyroblast off the Snapcaster Mage. Vendean Click is going to resolve. It's going to take Lightning Bolt from Ely's hand and put it on the bottom. Looks like Ely drew an island off of the Vendean Click trigger, which has to be a big win for Noah.
Yeah, definitely a big win. The other thing is just that it's going to be able to hit Ely for 3 before it dies. So a lot of the times when you're trying to be the aggressor against a control deck, you accept the fact that your opponent is going to be able to play every creature that you play. You're just hoping that each creature gets in some amount of damage before it dies. And if you're able to do that, usually even if you're behind on card advantage and are not favored in the late game, you can just kind of squeeze your opponent for the last points of life that they have and win the game. So Noah is able to follow that philosophy.
Now Noah was able to cast his Ponder. Now I got to peek at a few cards while he was pondering, and there was a Young Pyromancer and a Gurmag Angler in that Ponder. So he did take the Gurmag Angler, and he's going to be able to delve it onto the battlefield here since he had an Underground Sea in his hand. And this is going to put a lethal attacker onto the battlefield. Now Ely does have that copy of Set Adrift in his hand, so he's still going to be able to delay this turn. However, that Vendean Click is going to kill Ely in 2 turns if there's no answer found to it.
Yeah, this is a dicey scenario, and I believe the Set Adrift was put on the bottom of the library, and Ely has the Lightning Bolt, if I'm not mistaken. But I may be mistaken. Either way, I believe Ely's going to have one answer, but this is a pretty dicey scenario.
So here's a Set Adrift that's going to put that Gurmag Angler back on top.
And this Set Adrift really isn't the answer that Ely wants. It's going to be a nice delay tactic, but Noah's going to have the option to just play it again on the next turn. So Set Adrift, it's kind of like an answer, but it guarantees the opponent of having a really great top deck next turn, which isn't so good.
It's very good to use in conjunction when your opponent fetches.
Yeah.
Similar to how Submerge is a powerhouse in the Temur Delvermere.
Yeah, so this is a little bit of a dicey scenario for Ely, but he's got these Snapcaster Mages. He might be able to dig his way out of this.
Well, he's going to be able to snap a Forked Bolt, and along with that attack from Snapcaster Mage, it's going to bring Noah down to 12. Noah is going to be able to deploy that Gurmag Angler, but he has a Forked Bolt himself to kill both Snapcaster Mages.
Wow, brutal.
And replay that Gurmag Angler.
Jeez, what a sick play.
God, that Forked Bolt was crushing.
Oh. When the Forked Bolt gets the full 2-for-1, it is just phenomenal. What a savage beating.
Now Ely is able to find, it looks like, a little bit of action with this Ponder, but he is dead to Gurmag Angler if he doesn't get a blocker.
Yeah, he really doesn't have a clean answer to Gurmag Angler. He really wanted those Snapcaster Mages to stick on the board because his best way of killing a Gurmag Angler is block with Snapcaster and then bolt it post-combat. And now he does not have that option.
So we're going to shuffle on this Ponder, And man, that forked bolt was gross.
Yeah, that was a really gross forked bolt.
And that's going to take game 1 for Noah Walker. Noah's going to go up a game over Ellie Kassis. They're both 9-1. Noah's on Grixis Delver. Ellie is on Blue-Red Delver. Forked bolt was the all-star there. It did good work for Ely as well, but for Noah, it's going to take the game. Let's go ahead and take a look at their sideboards and see what kind of options we have. Ely has 2 Pyroblast, a Hydroblast, 2 Surgical Extraction, 2 Blood Moon, a Submerge, a Pithy Needle, 2 Smash to Smithereens, 2 Sulfur Elemental, a Null Rod, and a Basic Mountain. What do you think Ely's going to do?
So he already has 2 Pyroblasts in the main deck. I don't think he's going to want to bring two more. There's a small chance that he wants to bring in Hydroblast, but I don't think so. I think the Blood Moons would be great cards to bring in. I think Pithing Needle on Deathrite Shaman is something that Ely could look to, but overall, I don't think he's going to do a whole lot. His deck is kind of well set up for this. I think he's definitely going to bring in the Blood Moons. I'm not really sure about anything else.
Now on Noah's side, we've got those 2 spicy Painful Truths, 2 Surgical Extraction, 2 Pyroblast, and Engineered Explosives, a Pithy Needle, a Dismember, a Dark Blast, a Cabal Therapy, 1 Grim Lavamancer, 1 Ancient Grudge, and 2 copies of Baleful Strix. What do we think Noah's bringing in?
So I think Noah is going to really be able to do his Grixis thing and board into a much more attrition-y deck. I think the Painful Truths are definitely going to come in. I think the Dark Blast is something that looks like it's going to have a fair amount of utility. Cabal Therapy, I think, is going to come in. Grim Lavamancer, I think, is going to come in. And I think we may even see the Baleful Strix come in. The Baleful Strix is obviously not a particularly powerful card in this matchup, but depending on if Noah just wants another incidental 2-for-1, it could be a good card to look to.
Yeah, Baleful Strix plays that attrition role very well, and in general, it's good against the card Delver of Secrets.
Yeah. So one thing also that I want to highlight before we get back into this game is I was talking about how in the early turns of the game, Ely was playing things a little more patiently, playing around Stifle, but that was leading him to take some extra damage from his Delver. For example, there's the turn where Ely had Forked Bolt, but he didn't crack his fetch land and waited for his opponent to brainstorm and then use it, and then didn't use the red mana. So I found that pretty interesting to be something that could have been maybe the real turning point in the game with just Ely being aggroed out a little too quickly.
Yeah, he did take some damage they didn't really need to. However, to be completely honest, that Grimag Angler was going to chomp him no matter what.
Yeah, maybe. And maybe he did need to take the damage. It's an interesting discussion point.
So while our players finish up their sideboarding and shuffling, I want to take a quick second to talk about something real exciting that's coming up soon. Shadows over Innistrad.
Oh, yeah.
So blocks have been changed, 2-set blocks now. We're getting new stories a little bit quicker instead of having to wait a full 3 sets for a block to go through its storyline. Shadows over Innistrad, pre-order today. It's going to ship April the 8th. Go to StarCityGames.com/SOI. I'm hoping there's some sweet things to come back. We've already seen Madness has been spoiled. We've already seen Flashback has been spoiled with Dread Return going to be in the set. I like using my graveyard. I'm happy. Yeah,
the original Innistrad, it was one of the great limited formats, and it was also just awesome for Constructed. Seeing cards like Huntmaster of the Fells, Lave of Aldaran, Bonfire of the Damned, was from that.
Whoa. I don't know if I'd say Bonfire was great for Constructed.
Oh, I loved it. Are you kidding me?
Man, I hated Bonfire. I've lost more games of Magic to the card Bonfire of the Damned than probably any other card in Magic.
I think I've won more cards with Bonfire of the Damned more than any. Actually, I probably won the most cards, most games probably with like a Johnny Call or the Pride specifically, but either way, I'm looking forward to it for a multitude of reasons.
That standard format had a lot of great equalizers. Cards like Bonfire, cards like Thragtusk were real good at letting you just get out of almost any jam. Yeah,
I don't know how balanced that format was because I just thought that Jund was way better than everything else. So the Sphinx's Revelation decks were pretty cool, and towards the very end of that season, it seemed like the control players had figured out how to build that deck perfectly. And then I started to fear that deck. But for a while, you were just, casting Sire of Insanity and Rakdos Return. And, you really got to manhandle the control players and then just bonfire out all the aggro players. So I have fond memories, as you can see.
So we're going, for those of you just joining us, Noah Walker is up a game against Ellie Kassis. Both players are 9-1. Noah's on Grixis Delver, Ellie is on Blue-Red Delver, and we're going into game 2 here with Ellie on the play. So he's going to lead on a polluted Delta, go down to 19 to go find a land out of his deck. Since he's fetching it here, he has to hope that he has something like Delver of Secrets to get out on the front foot, because that's going to be really important in this match.
Yeah, and because Ely is getting a basic island, we can probably assume that he has other lands in his hand. The other thing that'll be interesting too is in the last game, Ely chose to play things very patiently. But in this game, since he's on the play, we may see him play things a little bit more aggressively and try to capitalize on that initiative.
So it looks like he's just going to start out with a Gitaxian Probe for full mana cost of 1 blue. And Noah's going to reveal a hand of Flooded Strand, Tropical Island, Ponder. Looks like Grim Lavamancer, Gurmag Angler, a Forked Bolt, and a Daze. This looks like a real good hand.
This does look like a really good hand. The one thing that is slightly awkward, although I'm sure it'll get fixed throughout his draw steps, is the fact that he can't have access to red and black mana with this hand, but I'm sure between Ponder and some draw steps that'll resolve itself.
Yeah, no bad lands to be found in the deck.
No. Only good lands.
Yeah, no bad lands. Literal bad lands. So
Yeah.
Ellie is going to draw a card off his Probe and then pass back to Noah. And let's see what we've got on turn 1. He's going to use his Flooded Strand, go down to 19 to even up the life totals. And my guess is Volcanic Island, Grim Lavamancer.
I would have to imagine that's his play also.
So there is the Volcanic Island. Let's see what he decides to follow up with.
Again, being able to seize the initiative and get a creature out of the board first is just a great tempo play.
And there is that Grim Lavamancer from Noah. He's going to pass the turn back to Ellie. Looks like Ellie has like some Force of Will, some more lands in his hand. We might see like a young Pyromancer here.
I almost thought I saw a Blood Moon in his hand, but maybe that was a young Pyromancer.
Ooh, I don't think Noah's deck can actually beat Blood Moon.
Yeah, I don't think so either. He has Deathrite Shamans that can give him a little bit of wiggle room, but that is not really a solution to the problem.
Well, to be fair, he does have Grim Lavamancer, which gets red mana. Draw, discard, deals damage.
Yep.
It could happen.
Yeah, the other thing that can be tricky about Blood Moon is if you cast Blood Moon but you're behind on the board, sometimes if you don't have a big powerful play like Supreme Verdict to catch you back up, the Blood Moon will lock your opponent out of the game, but they'll be so far ahead on tempo they'll be able to ride that to victory anyway.
Yeah, I can say that I've lost to Tarmogoyf and or Delver of Secrets quite a few times when I have Blood Moon on the battlefield.
Oh yeah, I remember I had one game where I cast turn 2 Blood Moon against my opponent's Delver of Secrets when I was playing Sneak and Show, and then they just killed me with that one Delver of Secrets. It was absolutely insane. I couldn't believe it. I wanted to pull all the hair out of my head.
Now, Noah's had 2 great draw steps, another copy of Flooded Strand and a Deathrite Shaman to go along with the rest of the cards in his hand. So Noah's going to go down to 18 using that Flooded Strand to find an Underground Sea. We're going to try and cast a copy of Deathrite Shaman. Ely is going to brainstorm in response. If his plan is to put Blood Moon on the battlefield, he should probably try and get that Deathrite Shaman not to resolve.
Yeah, I think that's basically one of the lines of play that Ely is playing towards. Even if he hasn't drawn the Blood Moon yet, it's certainly one of his big trumps in the matchup. And given the fact that he has Brainstorm and Ponder, other cantrips like Gitaxian Probe, he knows that even if he doesn't have the Blood Moon now, there's a good chance he will be able to see it soon. And so he wants to keep that as an available line of play that can be powerful.
Deathrite Shaman is going to resolve for Noah Walker. He's going to follow that up with a Ponder. Let's see if he decides to keep it or shuffle. What would you say? So much like me, I have to imagine you've played a lot of Ponders in your life.
Yeah.
What would you say an estimate of the percentage of shuffling on Ponder over the course of you playing Ponder in Magic tournaments?
So that's pretty interesting. I actually feel like I shuffle with Ponder a lot more when I'm playing Sneak and Show, and I shuffle a lot less when I'm playing Delver.
Yeah, I can see that. In a deck like Sneak and Show, you're looking for specific pieces.
Yeah.
And in a deck like Team or Delver, or really any of the Delver decks, so many of the pieces are interchangeable. You're just looking for stuff.
Right, exactly.
Or lands. You're either looking for stuff or lands.
Yeah. A lot of the times with the Delver deck, because the pieces are so interchangeable, like you said, you can just draw one or two of the cards and then shuffle the third away. Whereas with a combo deck, you're usually digging for key pieces, and nothing really matters so long as you draw them.
Ely's going to go ahead and use his Scalding Tarn, go down to 16 to find a basic mountain, and we might see Blood Moon just hitting the battlefield now.
This would be a good time for it.
There we go. So Ely has that Blood Moon. He knows Noah has a copy of Daze in his hand, which he's going to use, and Ely does have a Force of Will or a Daze himself to try and resolve that Blood Moon.
So Noah is still going to be able to have a little bit of play from here because of that Deathrite Shaman. Doesn't look like Noah is going to be able to deploy his Gurmag Angler, but he's certainly going to be able to play Young Pyromancer if he wants and get some... Oh, looks like he does have enough mana.
Yeah, so he is just going to get that Gurmag Angler out. Ely is going to have to use a Force of Will to stop it from happening. The big thing, though, is that is going to take up 2 of the lands that were in his graveyard, so that Deathrite Shaman's only going to have food that's in Ely's graveyard.
Right.
And once those are used up, nada.
Yeah, and Noah only has one more Gurmag Angler in his deck, but it's basically locked out from being played for quite some time, especially with that Grim Lavamancer on the board.
So here's a Snapcaster Mage from Ely. He's going to go ahead and recast his Brainstorm. Since he does have those 2 basic islands on the battlefield, he is going to be able to cast the majority of spells in his deck. And it looks like that Brainstorm just found a whole bunch of red goodness, which is going to spell bad news for Noah Walker and his Deathrite Shaman.
Yeah, Deathrite Shaman, it's going to be able to generate a little bit of mana, not much. Noah really needs to capitalize on this opportunity while he still has a foothold in this game to try to close things out. It's going to be pretty tricky, though. Ely has a lot of life to work with, and even though Noah's a little ahead on board, Ely is going to be able to start catching up, and Noah's going to have a hard time deploying more threats. But it looks like he's got some of them.
Yeah, this is a good start. Noah's going to cast a Young Pyromancer, use a Forked Bolt to take care of that Snapcaster Mage, do 1 point of damage to Ely, and make a CVM token.
I do like the CVM token.
Rightfully so. All right, I have to root for Noah now. Sorry, Ely. Noah's got the right tokens.
All right, I'll root for Ely. I like that.
Ooh, Ely has a copy of Young Pyromancer himself.
And he did bring in the Hydroblast. That's pretty interesting.
The Hydroblast is going to take care of the Grim Lavamancer.
And I like that Ely is going for the Grim Lavamancer instead of the Young Pyromancer here, because the Grim Lavamancer has the potential to knock out Ely's Young Pyromancer, whereas Ely's Young Pyromancer can go toe-to-toe with Noah's.
Let's see what Noah's got going on. Well, this is going to be, looks like the last active. Oh, there's still one more, so we'll still have one more activation. Here's a Brainstorm. Let's see what he can draw into. Going to get some more tokens. I do like that Noah has a stash of CVM tokens.
Yeah, and Ely is able to cash in that Pyroblast, which is pretty sweet because Noah's probably not going to cast very many blue spells this game. Oh, you know what would have been great if they had kept Dylan Donegan tokens on one side and then CVM tokens on the other side.
But they're getting rid of the CVM tokens to use the Dylan tokens?
I think the table judge hates you.
Oh, man. You know, I could get it if the CVM token wasn't an official Star City Games token.
Yeah. I agree. We'll have to lobby for this.
All right.
We'll have to start a petition.
I'll live.
Maybe we can rally Twitter to your cause, or maybe that'll get us in trouble if we stir the pot.
Who knows? Let's just talk about the rest of the match. Noah is going to go ahead and use a Dismember. Going to pay some life, but that's going to take care of the Young Pyromancer on Ely's side and allow Noah to try and run away with this game with his Young Pyromancer.
Yeah, despite this Blood Moon, Ely has been able to continue having some pretty impactful plays. It'll be interesting to see what he can do moving forward. Ely is certainly favored to battle back from this position, but Noah just keeps doing stuff despite this Blood Moon.
And there's a Delver of Secrets for Noah.
Man, this would have been a very different game if Ely had been able to find a Force of Will for that Deathrite Shaman. We saw him cast a Brainstorm in response, digging for one. Ely knew that Deathrite Shaman would be a problem, and it has certainly been the fuel for Noah to battle through this Blood Moon.
Well, Noah's going to go ahead and send in 2 elemental tokens, a Delver of Secrets, and a Deathrite Shaman. Ely is going to, trade off his elemental for that Deathrite, or for the Delver of Secrets. That way we don't have to worry about it flipping. But what does he have going on? Ooh, so there is a copy of Young Pyromancer for Ely, and he has a chance to try and get back in this game if he can chain some cantrips together. But that window is closing very quickly.
Yeah, even if Ely blocks the Young Pyromancer here, he's going to be going to 3, and he's essentially going to be dead on the next attack. So Ely needs to find something big. A top deck Young Pyromancer probably won't do it. He needs to find, like, a Snapcaster Mage would be perfect off the top of his deck.
If Noah wins this game, this is going to be pretty impressive.
Yeah.
So Ely's going to go down to 1, and
wow,
Noah's just going to take this game. He gets, quote unquote, locked out by a Blood Moon. Had that Deathrite Shaman, was able to cast a couple spells. Young Pyromancer's red, Grim Lavamancer's red. We can still get into the red zone. And Noah Walker is going to take this game over Ely Kassis, 2 games to 0. He's going to move on to 10-1, putting himself in a good spot to try and top 8 this event.